All right. Got to say, the stack of articles and notes you sent over has me really curious. An American sovereign wealth fund and a national dividend. Now that's a pretty bold idea. What's the thinking behind this?
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating, right? Just imagine, instead of just paying taxes, every American, every single one, becomes like a shareholder in the nation's success.
Yeah.
And they get, regular dividend checks based on how well the country's doing overall.
Okay, I'm listening. So we're talking more than just like spare change here, right?
Right.
One of the articles you sent actually suggests that these dividends could be pretty substantial, potentially even enough to fund things like universal childcare. I mean, that would be huge for a lot of families.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. The whole concept is that this American Sovereign Wealth Fund, the ASWF, it would be investing in assets that generate really significant returns. Things like, natural resources, big infrastructure projects, maybe even investing in like cutting edge tech companies.
So this isn't just about like stashing some cash in a savings account. It's about actively investing in things that could benefit the whole country and then sharing those profits with every citizen.
Yeah, precisely. The national dividend basically makes sure that those profits go directly back to the people. They don't just get added to the government's coffers or anything like that. It's kind of similar to how Alaska's permanent fund works,
Yeah.
where they distribute royal revenue to all the residents.
Yeah, right, right. But I think some people, when they hear national dividend, they might think, "Hold on, isn't that just another government handout?" So
Yeah.
how is this different from like typical welfare programs?
Yeah, that's a question that comes up all the time, and it's really important to address it. I think the key difference here is that the national dividend, it wouldn't be funded by taxes. It would be completely self-funded through the returns that the ASWF generates through its investments.
So it's not about taking from one group to give to another. It's about creating a system where everyone has a stake in the nation's economic success. I mean, I can see how this could potentially appeal to a really wide range of people with all sorts of, different political views.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And some of these sources even suggest that conservatives might be particularly open to this idea. They're already thinking a lot about the potential changes, economic changes that are coming from AI and automation.
Mm-hmm.
And the national dividend could be framed as a way to manage those changes in a way that makes sure everyone benefits from these technological advancements.
Okay, that's an interesting angle. I hadn't really thought about it like that before. Now, one of the things you sent was actually a song. It's called "Get to Higher Ground." What's the story with that?
Yeah, the song uses this image of a tsunami to kind of represent all these massive changes that we're seeing, changes in technology and politics and the economy, all these things. And the song, it basically encourages us to, instead of trying to fight those changes, to find higher ground,
Okay.
to adapt and thrive in this new landscape.
I see. I see the metaphor. So, are you saying the national dividend is like our higher ground in a way in the face of all these changes?
Yeah, you could definitely interpret it that way. I mean, the national dividend could be a way to create a more resilient and equitable society, one that's better prepared for the challenges and the opportunities, of the future.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together, but how do we actually get from here to there? I mean, how do we make this national dividend actually happen? It seems like a pretty radical change from the way things are now.
Right. And the sources do propose a kind of strategic approach. They say, instead of trying to tackle the whole system all at once, start by building consensus around just the national dividend itself. Just focus on getting those checks flowing first, and then worry about the specifics of the ASWF later.
That's a smart approach, I think. Focus on the immediate benefit that people would see and then build momentum from there. But, we're in a pretty partisan political climate right now. How do you get both sides of the aisle to buy into something this big?
Well, that's where the framing becomes
Hmm.
really crucial. The sources really stress the need to appeal to both sides' interests. For example, people on the center left, they're often concerned about economic security, right?
Yeah.
While conservatives tend to favor, free market solutions, the national dividend, it kind of offers a way to address both of those concerns.
Interesting. So you're saying this could be a rare opportunity for compromise, a way to bridge the ideological divide that we see, all the time.
That's definitely the hope, but it's not just about, getting politicians on board. You also need to get the public excited about this idea. You need to convince people that this is a system that's worth fighting for.
That makes sense. And the song "Get to Higher Ground," it could play a role in that, right? If people see this as a way to not just survive, but to thrive amidst all these changes, that could be a really powerful motivator.
Absolutely, yeah. It's about tapping into people's aspirations and their fears, their hopes for the future, and their anxieties about what might lie ahead.
Well, I'll tell you, you're already getting me to think differently about this whole concept. I have to admit, at first I was a little skeptical, but the more we unpack it, the more intriguing it becomes.
That's what we're here for, to really delve into these complex ideas, to explore the different perspectives, and to help you understand the potential impact this could have on your life and the future of the country.
So are you saying this could be one of those tsunami moments, like a fundamental shift in how we think about the relationship between citizens and their government, between the economy and individual well-being?
It's certainly a possibility, and that's what makes this so fascinating. We're not just talking about like a policy tweak here. We're talking about a potential paradigm shift.
Okay, well, I'm definitely hooked now. Let's dive a little deeper into the specifics. What does the research say about how this would actually work in practice?
Well, there are several key aspects that we need to unpack. Let's start by taking a closer look at the ASWF itself. How would this fund be structured? What would it invest in? And who would be in charge of managing it?
Sound like a plan. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. Okay, so we've kind of established that this American Sovereign Wealth Fund, this ASWF, it's like the engine behind this whole national dividend idea. But honestly, it's still a pretty complex concept. Can we break it down a bit more? What are we really talking about here?
Sure, yeah. I think it helps to look at some existing models, things that are already out there. The ASWF, it would be structured kind of similarly to Norway's sovereign wealth fund.
Yeah.
The one that invests a portion of their oil and gas revenues and uses it for long-term benefit for the whole country.
So instead of just spending all that money right away, they invest it to create like a source of income for down the road. That's pretty smart, pretty forward thinking.
Exactly, yeah. And the ASWF could be funded in a similar way by investing in assets that generate revenue.
Yeah.
Think of things like, mineral rights on federal lands.
Yeah.
Or infrastructure projects that generate tolls or user fees,
Yeah.
or even royalties from patents on research that the government's funded.
Okay, so we're talking about using the government's existing assets to create a fund that can sustain itself.
Yeah.
And then that fund can generate dividends for everyone. But what kind of returns are we talking about here? Like realistically?
Well, that depends, of course, depends on the specific, investment strategy. But some of the sources, they project that the ASWF could potentially generate, trillions of dollars, trillions in revenue over the long term.
Trillions. Wow. Okay, now we're talking. I can see why this has you so intrigued.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine the possibilities if even a fraction of that money was distributed as dividends.
Yeah.
It could give a really significant boost to household incomes, stimulate economic activity, and even create a buffer against financial hardship for a lot of people.
But wouldn't it lead to inflation? I mean, if everyone suddenly has more money to spend, wouldn't that just drive up prices on everything?
Yeah, that's a valid concern, and it's something that the sources, they do address it. The impact on inflation, it really depends on how those dividends are distributed, and also how people choose to spend or save that extra money.
So it's not a simple equation. There are a lot of moving parts here.
Right, exactly. And that's why it's so crucial to have a really well thought out implementation plan. The sources suggest a kind of gradual rollout, starting with smaller dividends that are phased in over time.
Okay, that makes sense. Start slow, see what happens, make adjustments as needed. But who would be in charge of making those decisions? I mean, who would manage this massive fund?
That's a key question, and it's one that sparks a lot of debate. The sources they propose, a variety of different governance models. Some suggest an independent board of experts. Others propose a more politically appointed body.
Yeah, I can see the pros and cons of each approach. An independent board, it might be less susceptible to political influence, right? But a more politically connected body, it might be better equipped to deal with the legislative process.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance to strike, and there's no easy answer. The key is to find a system that ensures both accountability and real expertise.
And transparency, right? People
Yeah.
need to be able to see how this fund is being managed and where their money is going.
Well, absolutely, yeah. Transparency is absolutely crucial for building public trust and making sure that the ASWF operates with integrity. The sources suggest a bunch of different mechanisms for achieving that. Things like, regular audits, public hearings, even online platforms where people can actually track the fund's performance.
Okay, so we've got a potential funding source. We've got a distribution mechanism. We've got a governance structure. What about the investment strategy itself? What would the ASWF actually invest in?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. There's a whole range of options, and the sources they explore a bunch of different approaches. Some emphasize more traditional investments,
Hmm.
like stocks and bonds and real estate. Others propose more innovative strategies, things like investing in renewable energy projects
Yeah.
or infrastructure development, or even venture capital funds that support emerging technologies.
So it's not just about maximizing returns. It's about investing in things that can benefit the whole country.
Yeah, exactly. The ASWF could be a really powerful tool for driving economic growth, creating jobs, and even addressing some of the big societal challenges that we face.
That's a compelling argument, but let's be honest. There are going to be some people who are skeptical of this whole idea. Some might see it as too risky or too radical or even too socialist.
Yeah, of course. You're right. There will always be naysayers,
Yeah.
right? But I think it's important to remember that every major policy shift, every leap forward, I mean, they've all faced their
Mhm.
share of critics.
I mean, think about Social Security or Medicare or
Mhm.
even the internet. I mean, all those things were initially met with skepticism and resistance.
Exactly. But over time, as people started to see the benefits, those doubts, they kind of faded away.
So you're saying the key is to really demonstrate the potential of the national dividend to show people how it can actually improve their lives
Right.
and create a better future for everyone.
Precisely. Yeah. It's about educating the public, addressing their concerns, and really building a coalition of support that can overcome the inevitable resistance that comes with any kind of change.
And that's where that song "Get to Higher Ground" comes
Yeah.
back into play, right? It's about helping people see this as an opportunity, not a threat.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about inspiring people to embrace change, to be part of something bigger than themselves, and to work together to create a more prosperous and equitable future.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to feel that inspiration myself. But let's not get too carried away just yet. We need to talk about the potential challenges, the risks, the unintended consequences. All the things that we need to be aware of.
You're right. It's important to approach this with a critical eye. What are some of the potential downsides that the sources highlight?
Well, for starters, there's always the risk of mismanagement or corruption, right? I mean, we're talking about a huge amount of money here. So how do we make sure that the ASWF is run ethically and efficiently?
That's a crucial question, and it's one that the sources they do address it in detail. They propose a whole range of safeguards, things like strict transparency requirements, independent audits, and a system of checks and balances to prevent any one person or group from having too much control.
Okay, it sounds like they've really thought this through.
Yeah, they have. But there are also some broader concerns about the potential impact on the economy and society, as a whole. Some critics they worry that the national dividend it could disincentivize work,
Mm.
lead to a decline in productivity.
That's a pretty common argument against any kind of social safety net.
It is, yeah. But the sources they counter that by saying the national dividend could actually have the opposite effect by providing a basic level of economic security, it could free people up to pursue more meaningful work, or to start businesses, or to invest in their education.
Interesting. So instead of creating a culture of dependency, it could actually foster a more dynamic and entrepreneurial society.
Exactly. And the sources, they point to examples like Alaska, where the permanent fund dividend, it hasn't led to a decline in work ethic, but rather a more diverse and resilient economy.
Okay, so there are potential benefits and potential risks, and ultimately the success of this whole idea, it really hinges on how it's implemented, how it's
Yeah.
managed, and how the public perceives it.
You've hit the nail on the head, yeah. The national dividend, it's not a magic bullet. It's a complex policy proposal with both opportunities and challenges.
And that's why it's so important to have these conversations, to explore the different perspectives and to weigh the evidence carefully.
Absolutely, yeah. And
Yeah.
and that's what the deep dive is all about. We're not here to tell you what to think. We're here to give you the tools to think for yourself.
I appreciate that. It's easy to get kind of swept away by the excitement of a bold idea, but it's crucial to maintain a critical perspective.
I agree. And that's why I think we need to delve into the political realities of this proposal.
Yeah.
How do you actually get something this radical
Hmm.
passed in our current political climate?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let's explore the political landscape a bit and see what strategies the sources suggest for making the national dividend a reality. Okay, so let's talk politics for a minute. Even if this national dividend is a good idea on paper, is it even remotely possible to get something this big, this transformative passed? I mean, in our current political climate, it seems like a long shot.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. There's no doubt about that. But the sources we've been looking at, they actually offer some surprisingly optimistic perspectives. They highlight the fact that this concept, it has the potential to appeal to both sides of the aisle,
Yeah.
which is pretty rare these days.
Yeah, that's true. We've been talking about how it could appeal to both conservatives and liberals, but it still seems like a really heavy lift to actually get it implemented. What are some of the strategies that these sources suggest for navigating the political landscape?
Well, one key point they emphasize is starting small. Instead of trying to launch the full-blown ASWF and national dividend all at once, they say, focus on getting a pilot program off the ground.
So kind of like a proof of concept.
Yeah,
Show people how it works on a smaller scale before going all in.
exactly. Yeah, a pilot program would allow policymakers to test out different approaches, to gather data, to really build public support. And it also reduces the initial financial risk, which could make it more palatable to the skeptics out there.
Yeah, that's a smart approach. But even a pilot program, it still needs buy-in from Congress, right? So how do you get lawmakers on board with something this unconventional?
Well, it's all about building a coalition. The sources suggest, identifying champions for this idea
Right.
within both parties. Lawmakers who are willing to take a chance on something new, something potentially transformative.
I imagine those champions would need to be pretty persuasive to get this through, given how entrenched the current system is. What kind of arguments would they need to make?
Well, the sources really emphasize the need to focus on the shared benefits, the things that kind of transcend partisan divides. For example, I mean, everyone wants a stronger economy, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's something both parties can definitely get behind.
Exactly. And the national dividend, it could be framed as an investment in long-term economic growth.
Hmm.
It could boost consumer spending. It could encourage entrepreneurship. It could even help create a more stable and resilient economy overall.
Yeah, that's a strong economic argument. But what about the social and political implications? I mean, that's often where things get really divisive.
You're right, but even there, the sources they find some common ground. They argue that the national dividend, it could actually help to bridge some of those divides
Yeah.
by creating a greater sense of shared ownership and national unity.
That's an interesting perspective. So instead of being a source of division, it could actually bring people together.
That's the idea. By giving everyone a stake in the country's success, it could foster a greater sense of community and maybe even reduce some of the resentment and polarization that we see so much of these days.
Yeah, I can see how that would be appealing to a lot of people, especially in our current climate. But let's be realistic. There are going to be powerful interests out there who will resist this idea.
Of course, yeah. I mean, anytime you challenge the status quo, you're bound to face opposition. The sources, they acknowledge that there will be pushback from those who benefit from the current system. The wealthy, the powerful, the special interests.
So how do you overcome that resistance?
Well, it's a bit of a David and Goliath battle, but the sources, they offer some strategic insights. They emphasize the importance of grassroots organizing. Building a movement from the ground up, and putting pressure on lawmakers from their constituents.
So it's not just about lobbying Congress. It's about mobilizing the public and making this a real national conversation.
Exactly. Yeah. The sources, they highlight the power of social media. Online activism and community organizing to build momentum for change. They also suggest forming alliances with unlikely partners, finding common cause with groups that might not typically be aligned on other issues.
That's a key point, I think. You need to build a really broad and diverse coalition to counter the influence of those who want to keep things the way they are.
Precisely. It's about creating a movement that's bigger than any one party or any one ideology or any one interest group. It's about uniting people around a shared vision of a more just and prosperous future.
That's a powerful message. But even with all the right strategies in place, it still feels like a long shot, to be honest. What makes you think this is even remotely possible?
Well, the sources point to a few factors that suggest that the time might actually be right for this kind of bold idea. For one thing, there's a growing awareness of the challenges that are posed by automation, by globalization, by rising inequality, and people are looking for solutions, looking for something that offers hope for a better future.
Yeah, that's true. There's definitely a sense out there that the old ways aren't working anymore. That we need new ideas to address the problems of the 21st century.
Exactly, and the national dividend, with its focus on economic security and shared ownership and technological innovation, could be just the kind of solution that people are looking for.
It's a compelling argument, and as we've been talking about this, I keep thinking back to that song "Get to Higher Ground." It seems to capture the essence of what we're discussing here.
Yeah, I agree. It's about recognizing the challenges that we face, adapting to the changing landscape, and finding a way to not just survive, but to thrive.
And the national dividend, with its focus on creating a more resilient and equitable society, it could be our path to that higher ground.
It's a bold vision. There's no doubt about it. But as we've seen throughout this deep dive, it's not just a pipe dream. It's a well thought out proposal with the potential to really transform our country for the better.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners? What do we want them to walk away with after this deep dive?
We want them to understand that the future, it's not predetermined. We have the power to shape it, to create a society that reflects our values and our aspirations. The American Sovereign Wealth Fund and the National Dividend are just one idea, one possibility, but they represent a fundamental shift in thinking, a challenge to the status quo, and a call to action.
Yeah. And we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, maybe challenged some of your assumptions, and maybe even inspired you to get involved in the conversation. The future is ours to create. Let's get to higher ground together.
Yeah.